इस तकरीब का इब्तिदा करते हैं। ख़वातीन व हज़रात, a very warm welcome to everybody who has come to attend this very important session on the SCO summit which Pakistan hosted recently. As we know, the SCO is the acronym for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a multilateral organization to ensure security and stability among its member countries. It essentially addresses three forces: terrorism, separatism, and extremism. Pakistan became a member of SCO in 2017, and Pakistan has always been an active member of the organization. It hosted the 23rd meeting of the Council of the Heads of Government of the member states in October, on the 15th and 16th of October last month, which was a highly successful diplomatic achievement for our country. They say it was a milestone in Pakistan's foreign policy. And it was attended by the Prime Ministers of China, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. The first Vice President of Iran was also present, and the External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar. Besides, there were also observer states and special guests. And it was considered a very great achievement for us also. It was also important because of the presence of the Chinese Prime Minister. If you add Belarus, there are 10 member states. Essentially, there were 9. China, India, Iran joined in 2023, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. It is headquartered in Beijing. It has observer states, including Afghanistan and Mongolia, and it also has what they call dialogue partners. Many countries of those countries, dialogue partners, are countries in Asia. With respect to Pakistan's active participation in this organization, it is interesting to note that next year, Pakistan would be heading the regional anti-terrorism structures called RATS. We'll talk about RATS.
Right.
And in the following year, Pakistan will be chairing the SCO Council of Heads of State in 2026, and it will also host a similar summit at that time. To discuss the significance of this, really it is an organization which spans the Eurasian landscape, landmass. To discuss this, a very significant organization, which is also some kind of indication of the shifting balance of power in the region. We have two very, very eminent scholars. And diplomat, the first person I would like to introduce with great pleasure is Ambassador Mustafa Kamal Qazi. He has been one of Pakistan's most distinguished diplomats with a wide-ranging experience serving in many countries in many capacities, but he was also our ambassador to Russia, the Netherlands, Indonesia, and Iraq, and above all, he was Pakistan's permanent representative to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. And on my left is Mr. Aftab Nabi. He is the former Inspector General of Police, Sindh, Director General of the National Police Bureau, Islamabad. He is an expert on counter-terrorism. He is a member of the Pakistan Institute of International Affairs, and he is a prolific writer. He has contributed articles, especially on colonialism, the colonial army, the army in British India, the British Raj. He has contributed articles for almost every issue of Pakistan Horizon in the last few years. I would now request Ambassador Mustafa Kamal Kazi to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Masuma Hassan, Aftab Nabi Saab, ladies and gentlemen. Before I get on to a topic, I must compliment you, Madam Masuma Hassan, for your energy, dynamism, and dedication with which you have transformed this historic institution into Pakistan's outstanding 21st century think tank. In doing so, you have admirably carried forward the legacy of your distinguished father, who established this great institution in parallel with the birth of our freedom from colonial yoke in 1947. Topic we have today is quite broad: SCO, multilateralism, connectivity, and counterterrorism. Each are in themselves topics on their own. In all these respects, SCO holds crucial relevance for us. Multilateralism, connectivity are very relevant and important for us. Not only that, but SCO also holds key to harnessing full potential of our geographical location. I'll go to the extent of asserting that until our membership of SCO, benefits of regional multilateralism were either absent or negligible for Pakistan. Thanks to India, SAARC is not just terminally ill, it is dead. India's hegemonic ambitions and inbuilt hostility towards Pakistan denied South Asia benefits of meaningful regional cooperation. Established in 1985, SAARC lingered on to become defunct in 2016. India sabotaged the summit to be held in Pakistan. Another regional organization of which we are a member, ECO, the Economic Cooperation Organization, comprising Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkey, and Pakistan, is just feel-good association. SCO now overshadows it. So by any measure, SCO distinctively stands out, whether we view it in the context of potential of trade and economic cooperation or connectivity, given our strategic location, or fight against terrorism, which has continued to haunt our country for the past many decades. But before I dwell on SCO, I would like to highlight essentials of multilateralism and benefits of connectivity with successful examples. Multilateralism is a means of coordinating national policies in groups of 3 or more states in accordance with shared interests and agreed principles. It is a tool of statecraft and mindset based on together we are strong. In multilateral system, whether international or regional, costs and benefits cannot be judged on a single interaction. Multilateralism creates a mechanism for constant bargaining that generates concessions and gains. Multilateralism is at the heart of UN system. Though founded in 1945, UN system is constantly evolving in an ever-changing world, but it has not kept pace with the emerging global realities. Its principal decision-making organ, tasked to preserve peace and security in the world, the Security Council, is dominated by 5 veto-bearing permanent members. It lacks due representation of the global South. It has not reformed or removed the veto power of Big Five. It is because of American veto we have seen how Security Council has been debating helplessly year-long Israeli genocide and destruction in Gaza, which has now spread to Lebanon. Twice, USA has withdrawn from UNESCO. During past 50 years, UNESCO was established to promote peace and security through international cooperation in education, arts, science, and culture. UNESCO's constitution has a touching preamble which states, "Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." It excludes women. In July 2020, Washington served notice of withdrawal from membership of World Health Organization, but mercifully withdrew it after 6 months in the wake of COVID outbreak, when the decision became domestically and internationally scandalous. So much for the multilateralism of the UN system. Similarly, Bretton Woods institutions, World Bank, and IMF, etc., have also lost their way. They are becoming less and less in tune with the changing needs and times. Take IMF, for example. It sits on the top of international monetary hierarchy. It was created to mitigate balance of payments crisis of member countries. Look at the enormous resources and compare them with the miserly relief it provides with harsh conditionalities. Besides the power of creating a type of money called special drawing rights, SDRs, IMF has $1 trillion of lending power, plus $250 billion of gold reserves, $42 billion invested mainly in rich countries. Last year, it made record-breaking $6.8 billion as earning fees from the distressed borrowers. 41 rich countries have $2,000 billion worth SDRs, which normally remain unused. If given for use by 150 developing countries to pay for their imports, it can boost international trade and stimulate exports from rich countries. Therefore, multilateralism at international forums needs urgent reforms. Rules and concepts that govern war and peace, trade and politics, and global governance must be negotiated anew between old and rising powers, keeping in view the interest of global South. On the other hand, regional multilateralism is doing well because besides other benefits, it boosts collective bargaining power at international multilateral institutions. Rush to obtain membership of BRICS, a cross-continental grouping, is case in point. It denotes the shift of power away from the collective West and drive towards multipolar world order. In the context of developing countries, 10-member ASEAN is most successful regional organization. It was set up in 1967 in extremely challenging political and economic circumstances. In the year 2000, ASEAN's trade with China was just $29 billion. But by 2021, it exploded to $669 billion, while its trade with USA increased to $364 billion. Trade with both China and USA, as well as with the rest of the world, has helped ASEAN countries remarkable rise and prosperity. The region's combined GDP in 2000 was just $620 billion. It rose to $3 trillion in 2021. By 2030, ASEAN's economy will be larger than Japan. It is something incredible. This success is really unique because ASEAN is the most diverse region in the world. Out of its 750 million people, 2,050 million are Muslims, 150 million are Christians, 150 million are Buddhists, Hindus, and communists. There were territorial disputes in the region, left behind by colonial rule. But one country whose role was crucial to the success of ASEAN is Indonesia, being the largest in area and population in the grouping. It gave up its policy of confrontation towards Malaysia in pursuance of its territorial dispute. Instead, it proposed establishment of ASEAN to promote economic and social cooperation and conflict resolution through dialogue, opposite of India's role in SAARC. I now revert back to the prospects of SCO. Pakistan's importance for SCO and SCO's importance for Pakistan is symbiotic. Both strengthen each other. Pakistan provides natural link to connect the Euro-Asian heartland with Arabian Sea and South Asia. CPEC will connect China, Pakistan, Iran, Central Asia, Caucasus, and Russia. Regional connectivity through economic integration and interdependency will not only usher an era of progress and prosperity, but where and when necessary, help conflict resolution in the region, as we know from ASEAN's experience. SU has 4 nuclear weapon states as members and 4 of world's major economies: China, Russia, Iran, and South Asia, India and Pakistan together. SU has regional anti-terrorism structure, RATS, based in St. Petersburg, and SU Interbank Association under the auspices of China Development Bank, based in Beijing. The bank takes part in financing projects, trade, and international financial settlements for SCO countries. Though India is a member of SCO, it is in no position to play a domineering and or negative role against Pakistan. It will depend on us for connectivity with members at our north and west. Besides, China and Russia overshadow it. Moreover, India has built-in disadvantage because it opposes China's BRI, which is the cornerstone of SCO's connectivity. China's BRI has already connected Euro-Asian landmass through road and railways. Today, around 60 trains per day carrying cargo travel from Shanghai across Central Asia, Mongolia, to various destinations in Europe, reaching there in 2 to 3 weeks, much quicker and efficient than by sea. This is a great achievement in itself. With expanding scope and stature, SCO will counter interference of extra-regional powers who have historically played a harmful and divisive role in the region. Interestingly, the creation of SCO is also rooted in the concept of conflict resolution. The border dispute between China and Soviet Union acquired multilateral dimension. When former Soviet Central Asian republics gained independence. To address border disputes, before with one country, afterwards with 4, China convened meeting in Shanghai of heads of states of Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, the Shanghai Five as they were known. Eventually, Shanghai Five concluded a treaty on confidence-building measures to bring stability in their bordering regions. In 2001, China suggested to institutionalize the Shanghai Five arrangement with the inclusion of Uzbekistan to transform Shanghai Five into SCO. Note the parallels between ASEAN and SCO. First, both took up disputes between member states because it is an essential prerequisite for regional cooperation. SAARC failed because India, far from resolving disputes, expected each member state to accept its hegemony. India and Pakistan applied for membership of SCO at the same time. First step for both was to acquire observer status. The decision in this regard was to be taken at the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting in 2005. Russia had an issue before they could give their concurrence to Pakistan's request to join SCO as an observer. It was 2005. I had just arrived in Moscow on transfer from The Hague. I was called to meet the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister urgently. He spelled out decade-long Russian issue and the principles of reciprocity. We had blocked its progress, according to him, and he implied that if we do not change our approach on that matter, Russia will not be able to endorse our request for observer status in SCO at the forthcoming SCO Foreign Ministers meeting. So we were faced with the prospect of India getting into the organization, consisting Central Asian countries, China and Russia, and we remaining out. At that time, our relations with Russia were not as warm as they are today. The matter required urgent decision on our side because of time constraint. Also, it needed review of our long entrenched approach on that matter. So I sought President Musharraf's intervention through a communication, followed by a telephone call. He agreed to my recommendation and asked me to immediately convey to the Russian side change in our approach on their issue. Thus, Pakistan became observer in SCO and later on its member in 2017. Recently held SCO summit in Islamabad took place in changing global circumstances, increased conflicts, fragmentation, and polarization in the world, and serious concerns about ability of international multilateral institutions to deal with them. Viewed in that context, SCO summit was well-timed and productive. Few of its decisions and recommendations were repeated at the BRICS summit held in Moscow later. The summit reaffirmed support for China's Belt and Road Initiative. India stood out isolated as the only member with reservations in this regard. Summit agreed on expansion of BRI, CPEC, and international North-South corridor to improve connectivity, focusing on roads, railways, and digital infrastructure. Russian Prime Minister highlighted the progress on their efforts to build North-South corridor in collaboration with Iran to maximize flows, cargo flows, and travel of citizens. The summit took unified stance on unilateral sanctions and protectionist trade practices. It condemned Israel's genocide and destruction in Gaza and Lebanon. The leaders called for increased cooperation in the spheres of politics and security. They agreed on stronger cooperation on environment protection and efforts to build climate resilience. For sure, summit bolstered Pakistan's image. Pakistan will be chairing SCO, Council of Heads of States, in 2026 and host its summit. Next year, Pakistan will head SCO's regional anti-terror structure, the REDS. With concrete progress to enhance connectivity and cooperation, SCO has proved it is just not a talk shop. It's a viable, effective, and powerful regional organization determined to transform destiny of Euro-Asian region. But to derive maximum benefits, Pakistan needs to develop broader outlook to issues of regional connectivity. It must accord priority to its relations with Iran without looking here and there. Iran borders 15 countries, 7 land and 8 maritime. Therefore, it's a connectivity hub, an energy gateway. We should devote greater focus on our improved rail and road links, trade and economic relations with Iran. We have not paid due attention to these and other fields and denied ourselves economic advantages, as well as easy and reliable access to Central and West Asia and Europe also. Thank you. I can give figures on Iran's trade with other regional countries. That will be quite interesting to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Mustafa Kamal Qazi, for this very wide-ranging and informative presentation. And I now request Mr. Aftab Nabi to take the floor. Mr. Aftab Nabi, in the course of his long and distinguished career as a notable police officer in Pakistan, has dealt with many criminals and cheats and thugs and all kinds of delinquents. But today he will speak about, he's done a lot of research, in fact, on the situation with respect to terrorism in some countries who are members of SCO. Mr. Aftab Nabi.
Dr. Masum Hassan, Chairperson of the Pakistan Institute of International Affairs, Ambassador Mustafa Kamal, honorable guests and honorable members, Assalamu alaikum. Today I'll be speaking on, as Dr. Masum Hassan mentioned, on terrorism and counter-terrorism in the context of the Shanghai, of the countries which are members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Thank you. Should I skip the initial historical aspect? Because yes, yes, I'll start with the institutional arrangement, which is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization has an institutional arrangement for counter-terrorism, which is not only advisory, exchange of data. In addition, there are mutual military exercises, exchange for delegations, etc., which adds substantially to a crucial aspect which makes counterterrorism successful, and that is intelligence. Invariably, it is due to the acute shortage of intelligence or timely communication of intelligence or the lack of will to share intelligence, which creates problems. In this respect, SOC, or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, has proved to be very useful in exchanging data, keeping all the countries informed of the situation. There's a regional anti-terrorist structure. The acronym is RATS, R-A-T-S, Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure of the Shanghai Cooperation Council. RATS is a permanent acting agency of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization based in Tashkent, Republic of Uzbekistan. It was officially launched on 1st January 2004 and is designed for assisting, coordinating, and interacting with the competent agencies of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, member states, on fighting terrorism, separatism, and extremism. RATS has an autonomous status within the structure of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The Council of RATS comprises of the representatives of Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states and is a decision-making body on the activities of RATS. The Executive Committee is the permanent administrative body of RATS. It is currently headed by a Lieutenant General Jansbek Jimbekov of the Republic of Kazakhstan. The director of SCO RATS Executive Committee is elected on a 3-year term, and he is Ruslan Mirzaev of Uzbekistan. He became the current director on the 1st of June 2022. Each member state also sends a permanent representative to RATS. Ruslan Mirzaev has been working in state security bodies since 1982. His military rank is Major General. Objectives and functions of RATS. Principal objective and functions of RATS are as follows. Maintenance of regular contacts with competent bodies of member states and international organizations responsible for fight against terrorism, separatism, and extremism. Coordination with the member states in preparing and carrying out counter-terrorism exercises. Preparing and carrying out of operational and search activities in the fight against terrorism, and separatism, and extremism. Participation in preparation of drafts of international legal documents concerning issues of fight against terrorism, separatism, and extremism. Participation in the formation of efficient global challenges and threats reaction system. Preparation and holding of conferences and workshops, promotion of exchange of experience in issues related to fight against terrorism, separatism, and extremism. RATS was involved in providing security at the Summer Olympics Games in Beijing in 2008, Summer Asian Games in Guangzhou in 2010, and the Winter Asian Games in Almaty and Astana in 2011. Activities of SCO and RATS. Cooperation on security. As of 2023, the SCO is primarily centered on security-related concerns, describing the main threats it confronts as being tourism, terrorism, separatism, and extremism. It has addressed regional human trafficking and weapons trafficking issues and created and activated terrorist blacklists. In October 2007, the SCO signed an agreement with the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, in the Tajik capital of Dushanbe to broaden cooperation on issues such as security, crime, and drug trafficking. As of 2010, the organization was opposing cyber warfare, saying that the dissemination of information is harmful to the spiritual, moral, and cultural spheres of other states and should be considered as a security threat. An accord adopted in 2009 defined information war in the past as an effort by a state to undermine another's political, economic, and social system. The diplomat reported in 2017 that SCO has foiled 600 terror plots and extradited 500 terrorists through RATS, a remarkable achievement. The 36th meeting of the Council of RATS decided to hold a joint anti-terror exercise and in Pakistan in 1921. Summits held under the SCO RATS agendas. According to the charter of the SCO, summits of the Council of Heads of State shall be held annually at alternating venues. The location of the summits follow the alphabetical order of the member states' names in Russian. The charter also dictates that the Council of the Heads of Government, that is the Prime Ministers, shall meet annually in a place decided upon by the Council members. The Council of Foreign Ministers is supposed to hold a summit once a month before the annual summit of the heads of state. Extraordinary meetings of the Council of Foreign Ministers can be called by any two member states. Summits held. 2004 SCO summit held in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. 2006, the SCO summit announced plans to fight cross-border drug crimes and the counter-terrorism rubric. 2007, summit of Bishkek held in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. 2015, summit at Ufa, Russia. 2018, summit of heads of state members in Qingdao, China. 2019, summit of heads of states and governments of the member states at Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. 2022, summit of heads of states and government and member states in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. 2024, summit in Astana, Kazakhstan in July 2024. The SCO called for the creation of a fair, multipolar world order based on the key role of the United Nations, international law, and aspirations of sovereign states towards a mutually beneficial partnership. The last 2024 summits of heads of state and government held in Islamabad. In 2005 summit in Kazakhstan, the SCO issued a declaration of heads of member states of the SCO, which said, the heads of the member states point out that against the backdrop of a contradictory process of globalization, multipolar cooperation, which is based on the principles of equal right and mutual respect, non-intervention in the internal affairs of sovereign state, non-confrontational way of thinking, and consecutive movement towards democratization of international relations contributes to the overall peace and security and calls upon international community, irrespective of its differences in ideology and social structure, to form a new concept of security based on mutual trust, mutual benefit, equality, and interaction. In November 2005, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reiterated that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, working to establish a rational and just world order, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization provides them with a unique opportunity to take part in the process of forming a fundamentally new model of geopolitical integration. In 2007, Matthew Brummer tracked the implications of SCO's expansion in the Persian Gulf. In 2008, one aim of the SCO was to ensure that liberal democracy could not gain ground in these countries, according to political scientist Thomas Ambrosio. In 2016, political scientist Thomas wrote that the Chinese took the lead in establishing the Shanghai Five primarily to limit Russian ability to reassert its influence in Central Asia. In 2008, the People's Daily wrote, the declaration points out that the SCO member countries have the ability and responsibility to safeguard the security of the Central Asian region and calls on Western countries to leave Western Asia. That is the most noticeable signal given by the summit to the world. In January 2023, India, as SCO chair, invited Pakistan's Foreign Minister and Chief Justice to attend a meeting in Goa in May 2023. As of May 2023, India and Pakistan continue to spar over terrorism, while the Central Asian members Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have erupted in armed conflict over border disputes. The SCO was not a platform for resolving bilateral issues, and the members were also reluctant to mediate disputes multilaterally. Due to the wide divergence among members, Indian commentators even called the Shanghai Contradiction Organization. Such sparring has continued in the past and may continue in the future. However, the SCO has been performing a very useful role, especially RAT, in coordination. Now, on 6 September 2024, the 10th RATS SCO International Science and Practical Conference and the 2nd CIS Conference on Combating Terrorism and Extremism took place. Attending the discussion, about 250 representatives of law enforcement agencies and 20 CIS and SCO members, 9 working structures of the CIS bodies, 2 working structures of SCO bodies, 22 research and development and education organizations, as well as 10 authorized agencies of 6 international organizations, including the UN, Interpol, the Eurasian Group on combating money laundering and financing of terrorism, and Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, and others took part in this conference. A message from President Shavkat Mirziyoyev of Uzbekistan was read out during the opening ceremony. In his remarks, the SCO Deputy Secretary General, Nuran Nazarbayev, noted that the RAT's SCO International Science and Practical Conference had won a reputation for itself as an influential platform for trustful dialogue on coping of contemporary challenges and threats. From 3 to 7 November 1914, much earlier memorandum of understanding between the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, and the Executive Committee of the Regional Antitrust Structure of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization was signed at the ICPO Interpol General Meeting in Monaco. This was a remarkable document in the sense that Interpol has a long history of collecting data on criminals, international criminals, mounting and coordinating in facilitating the arrest of those wanted on serious crimes. With the combination of RATs and the Interpol, the potency or the strength and the effectiveness of RATs has grown manifold. The potential benefit of establishing links. There's a convergence of CISA and RAT in the area of fight against terrorism and separatism. CISA is the Conference on Independent States. RAT has acquired considerable experience of fighting terrorism and separatism, while CISA is yet to initiate tangible measures. CISA can therefore benefit from the experience gained by RAT. CISA and RAT can exchange information, share ideas, and jointly work out strategies of addressing issues of terrorism and separatism. This will benefit both CISA and RAT. CISA has a membership of 26 countries, and this again is a very useful aspect for RATs. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aftab Nabi. Only a police officer could have dealt with this subject as extensively as you have. And now I will open the floor to questions.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Safa. I'm a research intern over here. And I have a question for Mr. Aftab Nabi. With the recent terrorist incidents in Pakistan now targeting Chinese citizens, how might these attacks impact Pakistan's standing and credibility within the SCO? How might these attacks impact Pakistan's credibility and standing within the SCO?
In recent times, the attacks have been linked to the Chinese investments. And it is, I think, tragic that they have been repeated. There have been several attacks. Naturally, initially, our standing becomes weak. But all such cases require long investigations, thorough investigations. The basic problem for the police or the other investigation agencies, for example, the Federal Investigation Agency also has a mandate in this. The problem is getting intelligence out of that. You have to penetrate such organizations. Penetration is not so easy. You have to select people from that organization or people having a background who are trustworthy from similar ethnic, sectarian, or political background who can be planted, or those who are already there. It takes time, fantastic amounts of money, and very often the entire amount is wasted. So initially, there is a problem. Our credibility will weaken. But given time, I'm sure we'll be able to detect many such. One case detected means at least 8 or 10 cases will be solved, because the perpetrators probably are the same. In many, it was reported that it could be the BLA. In others, it could be some jihadi organization operating from Afghanistan who dislike the investments and the inroads made by China inside Afghanistan and both Pakistan. They think all this will threaten their own existence, or China will get a predominant status within both Afghanistan and China.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I have one question with Ambassador Qazi Saab and the other question with Aftab Nabi Saab. Qazi Saab, do you think that if you look at the Kashmir issue, it has never been resolved by the UNO? Can we expect this can be resolved under SCO? Because the prime objective of SCO was to basically settle down the regional, the cross-border issues and, territories and all that stuff. Do you think that it can influence India collectively that they should resolve this issue? This is with you. Secondly, sir, you see the terrorism which is happening in Pakistan actually. It's concurring and incurring again and again actually. And we know that India and Afghanistan, they are basically harboring this terrorism through their people, like in Balochistan and everywhere. Are they not? It seems like they are not sharing their intelligence, which is part of this actually rats. They're not sharing the intelligence reports with Pakistan against those culprits who are doing all these kind of terrorist activities. So what do you say about that?
Regional multilateralism has been a source of solving problems within that region. Go from Europe, come to ASEAN, as I mentioned. SARC was a failure, as I pointed out. Here, SU has a very interesting dynamics, basically. Here are two big powers who are global powers, Russia and China. And other powers, regional power, also in Central Asian countries and Iran. And the whole secret of success to SEO hinges on this linkages and connectivity. And that is very important for India. India has been thinking above Pakistan. They've been thinking to go from Bombay by sea to the Gulf, and then get on to Dubai or any Gulf country, onwards to China, onwards to Israel and Europe and all. Which is, you really are changing shipments, etc. It's not feasible, and it will never take place also, So for India, the access to Central Asia and West Asia lies through Pakistan. There's a very big leverage that Pakistan has with the passage of time. As the trade and exchanges increase, the connectivity increases. If people from Pakistan can travel up to Europe by road and rail, Indians would like to be connected, So there will be a leverage on India as we proceed in time to resolve the issue is kind of asking for sky. But at least to accept it as an issue, put it on your agenda, and explore ways and means to resolve it. I see that taking place once the SEO acquires greater and greater connectivity with the passage of time?
Thank you. Yours is a very relevant and sensitive question. And I must say, it also is a reflection on SCO. However, there are a bunch of contradictions within the SCO. Russia and China, problems within the two countries. China and India, they have severe problems within the two countries. Then India and Pakistan, again, very serious and severe problems. The surprising aspect is why didn't India object or create problems for Pakistan while ensuring our entry in the SCO? Then within the CIS states, I think there are some problems with Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan amongst them. Problems are dormant, suddenly they crop up again. And it's all because of non-state actors creating problems across the border. As far as the terrorist incidents which have taken place in Pakistan and which keep on taking place, as you said, and as the lady said there, all of them, not all of them, are by jihadi organizations. Jihadi organizations, it could be the BLA, it could be some other organization. India, we strongly suspect that they are behind it. India, it's always said that India in association with some powerful countries, Western world, may be instigating them, funding them, or giving refuge. If you recollect, some years ago, a retired Navy or a serving Navy official was arrested in Balochistan. We kept him. There was a rumor that Pakistan will give him a death sentence, ultimately, as a compromise. And in good faith, we surrendered him. So I think this is a strong suspicion, all right, but very difficult to prove, especially in official functions or in official conferences. What tangible data can we have? I may be convinced, you may be convinced, but proving it there, and you have to prove it with whatever data you have. The Indian delegate will be there also. He will bring all sorts of background into the debate or a discussion and try to ridicule or counter our arguments. This is the problem. Although I think almost all intelligent Pakistanis suspect that. Right.
Assalamu alaikum. Sayyid Muaz Shah, I'm a member of the Institute. Really interesting conversation in the sense that optimism kafi hai SCO pe, and you shared some pessimistic thoughts. And I wanted to ask the Ambassador Saab a quick question on a lot of people who talk about the SCO, who are not part of the SCO and perhaps politically may not be aligned with them. They say that this is an organization that is of anti-American alignment and that this is the glue that keeps them together. When we look at Russia, China, Iran, and various other, what do you say about that? Is it just a negative thing that's pulling everybody together, or there's some future to that? And with Mr. Nabi, I would like to ask a question specifically with a terrorist group that I feel that a lot of the SCO countries are pretty much countering their activities, but I don't see that level of cooperation that I thought would happen, which is the ISIS-KP, the ISIS Khorasan province, in which, for example, with Afghanistan and China and Russia and Pakistan, they collectively do want to do something about it, but for some reason they're not able to have that level of cooperation, particularly in Afghanistan. So if you can shed any light as to why that's the case.
Well, obviously SCO is a challenge. It's a very important regional grouping with 4 nuclear powers in it and represents about 40% of the global GDP or 35% of the global GDP, much more than the G7. So there is this element of jealousy. And then it is also a kind of a trend towards greater and greater multipolarism at the global level, because we have been, victims for the last, say, 40 years or so of American unilateralism, hegemonism, as you can see, dominating every sphere, every aspect of activity of the countries, from dollar to anywhere. So obviously, SCO has these big powers. Their trading capacity, if you look at India, if you look at China, if you look at Russia, Iran. Now, even if these countries, just handful of countries, they decide to do their trade exchanges in their own currencies, it hits dollar, again, which is a symbol of global hegemonism, basically. And again, it is all just basically what dollar needs is a printing press. We all have to work to earn it, but for the Americans, it needs printing press only. They could live with the national debt of $35 trillion and don't feel anything about it. We can't live with very small debt. So obviously, as a challenge to the 200 years hegemony of the Western powers, whether Europe, and then after Europe, European powers, the Europe larger, greater Western collective West, with American coming in after Second War, it's a challenge to the post-Cold War order. And also the monopoly of international multilateralism. Again, there we are empty-handed. It dominates. The West dominates in every respect. So they see it as a challenge to their, hegemony. But otherwise, SCO is not against this or that. It is for the regional connectivity, regional trade, and regional prosperity.
Regarding your query on the Islamic states of Khorasan province, you're right. It is surprising that why cannot the top leaders of this jihadi organization, or an organization which has been declared terrorist, why can't they be caught? One reason is that their activities are more within the three countries, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and northern Afghanistan. When the pressure is exerted in the Central Asian states, they move south towards northern Afghanistan. And northern Afghanistan, as of these days, with the Taliban there, we should not expect, and we cannot expect, any tight or effective policy to control such terrorists. However, apart from the Islamic states of Khorasan province, other jihadi leaders have been detained, arrested. Some have died during encounters with the army or the police, and various have been sentenced to death or sentenced for life imprisonment.
My name is Irfan Amir, and I'm a research assistant over here. My question is for Ambassador Mustafa Kamal Qazi. How do you see the recent border agreement between India and China influencing the role of SCO in promoting regional connectivity, particularly security and cooperation?
Well, I think this is one successful example, actually, that just during the BRICS summit, the two countries had prepared to sort of have a kind of a disengagement agreement on their border dispute, which is very important development. This has been there for, issue had been very active and impaired the relationship between India and China to a large extent. Now there is, some sense of relief there. But mind you, with all the polarization between India and China, China is the largest trading partner of India. So the trade and economic links are very important, more than $100 billion of bilateral trade. And the Indian economy is dependent on the cheap Chinese inputs into their industry, spare parts, etc. So this is again another factor which also created kind of a restraint on China, on India, to keep on, not to keep on exploiting this border dispute to gain the approbation of, from or the goodwill of the Western countries. Basically, India used it, but then this compulsion, economic compulsion, plus this greater BRICS and SCO compulsion, this is a prelude. So this is why I stress on regional cooperation, because it is mutuality of interest always that works importantly.
My question is to Ambassador Kazi. Ambassador Saab, do you think that a regional organization like SCO is a bulwark against or is a safety valve against outbreak of any potential conflict between India and China, or for that matter, India and Pakistan? And in case any conflict breaks out between these countries or among these countries, SCO will be able to play a crucial role in conflict resolution, in preventing such a conflict.
Well, the interest between India and China, both bilateral and regional, are so, vast that I don't see any possibility of a real conflict between the two.
Of course, there is no possibility of outbreak of any conflict, given the interests, their mutual interests involved. But in case any conflict breaks out between India and China, or India and Pakistan, what role this organization will be playing? Although there is no possibility, you are right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you see again, the two members, for instance, in case of India, Pakistan, China and Russia would have, and also the West Asian partners like Iran, and possibly Turkey also is an observer status in SCO. So they will have this regional interest will drive people to contain, and also the interest that would build between India and Pakistan will also help in sort of a softening the approach. You have a very unusual government in India headed by Prime Minister Modi. This is totally out of the whole, if you look at the Indian history, it is very unusual. And I don't think it's going to last forever. There will be changes in India who will review their approaches towards Pakistan. Thank you.
My question is for Mr. Aftab Nabi. I wanted to ask that with your extensive background in law enforcement, what specific counter-terrorism strategies have proven most effective within Pakistan, and do you think that these can be shared or adapted with other SCO member states?
Number one, what effective strategy should be adopted?
No, sorry to interrupt. I was asking, what specific counter-terrorism strategies have proven most effective within Pakistan that you have taken a part in? And do you think that these can be adapted and shared with other SCO member states?
If your query is linked to the fact where I took part or was associated with, I think in those days there was very little tenure. My last posting in Sindh was in 2001 up till September. The rest I spent in Islamabad, about 4 years. The most effective strategy is always genuine or hardcore intelligence gathering. Without this, so very difficult, categorizing an individual as a terrorist. There's a range of strengths. A man may be exploding a small bomb. he'll be categorized as terrorist without investigation. Whereas someone would be planning a massive killing in a mosque or planting a bomb or through various suicide jackets. However, as your question is, what is the most effective strategy? I think number one, intelligence. Number two, the personnel given this task should be selected very, very carefully. The investigation agencies, those who survey, those who collect intelligence, or those who plan an operation and raid to arrest. That planning depends on professionalism and dedication. That is very, very essential. Then they should be assessed psychologically also. There have been problems. Take the case of Salman Taseer. His own gunman, his own guard, killed him because he was a rabid, radical, die-hard jihadi types or that. Otherwise, he's become a hero. A retired judge of the High Court went to jail to plead his case or to suggest that he would handle his case. It was absolutely shocking. Then, apart from all this, the team. It can't be a one-man affair. It has to be a team who gathers intelligence, a team who plans it, the head plans it, they assign tasks to individuals. It should be suitable to their background. The problem in our country is policing is devoid of funds. It's 80% pay and allowances oriented budget. So what do you expect after that? The training is not there. The same is the situation with the FIA. I've worked both in the FIA, Islamabad. I've worked in the FIA, Karachi, dealing with Sindh and Balochistan. Intelligence Bureau, I've worked there. Anti-narcotics force, I've worked there. In the Ministry of Interior, I've worked there. I've also worked in the Home Department, Government of Sindh. The problem of funds is in all departments, but especially in the police because it's an operational department, unlike the secretariat. Then the dedication is not there. Hardly 25–30% are dedicated. Those that are dedicated, the problem is career planning, and they get disappointed. Someone with better contacts is promoted. So all these things hit at the morale of the investigating officers or the front line. In the front line, it is always the police. So the strategy should be merit, seniority, competence, integrity, professionalism. If that is there, I'm sure there'll be an improvement.
Well, if there are no more questions, I'm going to wrap up this very interesting session and to thank both our speakers, Ambassador Mustafa Kamal Qazi and Mr. Aftab Nabi, on the significance and importance of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. As was rightly pointed out, this is a region in which there are 4 nuclear powers. And in the present global perspective, there is a great change also. There is a shift in the balance of power. There is a lot of talk about de-dollarization. The American dollar is the world's reserve currency, but many countries, especially led by China, would like to trade in their own currencies or in different currencies, further weakening whatever importance the West has with respect to their own currency, their own reserve currency. I would also like to say that hundreds of people in the police force in Pakistan have laid down their lives in fighting against the militants and in fighting against terror. We read this in the newspaper every day. Recently, there has been a increasing spate in the occurrence of terror incidents. It's become front page news as far as we are concerned. But the police force and also the paramilitary forces and also the levies and all those who are engaged in law enforcement have made great sacrifices, which we should acknowledge and which we cannot really pay them enough. We can pay compensation, we can give money to their bereaved families, but that will not bring back the personnel which we have lost. Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab. You have always graced our events with great grace. And thank you very much, Aftab Nabi Saab, not only for what you have taught us today, but also on behalf of the Institute, I want to thank you for the really great contribution you've made in writing for our journal in many of our issues in the recent past. I want to also thank this wonderful audience and to tell you that a cup of tea awaits you on the ground floor. Khuda Hafiz.